Welcome to Sam Outside. I'm Sam and I'm outside advocating the need to immerse yourself in nature, to make some nature connection. Now, it's been my experience that when most people are invited to adopt a new habit, one that's good for us, um, we all in our core and just out there in the world, we know the reasons, right? We know we're supposed to floss, we know we're supposed to drink so much water, we know we're supposed to get so much sleep, but sometimes when we have choices, when we have recommendations for making very intentional efforts, creating habits around a healthy lifestyle, it sometimes takes a medical professional. It takes an instant. There sometimes is a key moment. And so for some people, they do receive a nature prescription. A medical professional has to recommend spending time in nature to help with chronic stress, chronic inflammation, anxiety, depression, trauma, PTSD. And there are so many benefits to spending time in nature, just for overall physical, mental, and emotional well-being. But for some, there are some barriers. And again, that habit, a healthy habit, can take a couple weeks before it becomes routine. So time is a barrier. Now, 20 minutes minimum, right? As a certified forest therapy guide, when I invite guests to join me on a guided forest therapy walk, it takes 20 minutes just to get people there. The true healing doesn't happen through nature connection until the second into our third hour. All right, so that's a one-time experience. But based on that experience, people will have a strong foundation to continue their practice, should they choose, with a greater understanding, with firsthand experience, that on its own. So the idea, the reason behind hiring a guide for forest therapy and nature connection is because a guide can hold the vessel for things that an individual who's participating in forest bathing, which is something you do on your own, the guided forest therapy experience, forest therapy, the guide holds the vessel for safety, for timing, for curriculum and scaffolded progression, for immersion and connection. And they also help hold counsel. And that's the act of sharing when there are multiple people involved. Now, it is possible to do a guided forest therapy experience one-on-one, but we still hold counsel between the different invitations that could still take between 2 and 3 hours. So the time it takes for an individual to start adopting the habit of nature connection, finding the time to spend 20 minutes a couple times a week in nature. Obviously, there are other barriers. Access. Some people just don't have a green space near them. So yes, there are some things that you can do. It might require additional time, other resources to get to a greener space than you currently find your situation. Now, the reason nature connection is so important is because our bodies, our brains, our hearts, our minds suffer, are greatly distracted by the very human world we live in. Overstimulus with the wrong kind of sounds and smells and geometry. And they're all things that are counter to our very ancient brain. It causes stress. Even if we're not feeling the stress, it's there. And it's becoming a growing concern, and it's being acknowledged as something that we need to find some balance with. So nature connection is it. Some people just don't have a forest near them. Now, research has proven that students achieve 20% more academically, which also leads to better confidence and improved social other things. 20% by simply having small changes to the learning environment. So despite bringing the learning environment outside into a forest, and there are forest schools for that reason, but the average classroom can boost cognitive learning, improve test scores by changing color to something that is more green, more forest related, but also smells. All right. So getting away from industrial solvents and maybe introducing some natural smells through aromatherapy. And then images. If there is a whiteboard, which there is in most schools, simply having art, posters, pictures, and something in the background that is showing nature images. Nature, of course, just nature. And then nature sounds, all right? The sound of water, waves, rain, sound of birds, animal calls, just the sound of a forest. A visit to the zoo could do just that. Going to a local park, a green space, the more biodiversity you have access to, the more stimulus you have. So you can do this in a garden center. Now, that same 20% in terms of recovery, faster recovery time, and requiring fewer and less potent pain medication can be achieved, that reduction can be achieved in patients by simply giving them access to a window that views the outside natural world, not the parking lot, right? But also changes in what their senses are absorbing while in recovery. So increase recovery time, decrease medications, decrease potency by simply including nature smells, nature images, nature colors as part of the recovery room process. Proven. So access is its own thing. Nature connection, just nature does the work. You just have to be there. And you'll get the foundation of reducing cortisol, the fresh air and daylight increases serotonin, right? The act of moving, all right? Knowing that you're doing something good for yourself. There are endorphins and some small amounts of dopamine that come with doing a good thing for yourself and developing consistency and a new habit, improving your overall well-being does activate all those positive hormones. 20 minutes in nature reduces cortisol, regulates blood pressure, regulates heart rhythms, and some people are still challenged because nature connection and nature immersion requires some sensory work. Not everyone has all of their senses. So for someone who is visually challenged, they're not going to see the fractals of light, the play, the color. Someone who might not have as much sensation in their touch won't be able to feel the dampness and coolness, textures of bark, moss, dirt. A lot of people who don't have, a strong sense of smell. And so again, not being able to smell a damp forest, to smell dry pine leaves. These are all things that will take away from and challenge the overall sensory experience. Mobility can be a challenge, which is why I'm advocating bringing nature indoors if you need to. I lost count, but in our own household, we've got over 40 different house plants, and it's not a lot of square footage. We live in 1,000 square feet. So we also have a number of vegetable gardens and flower beds around the property. In this year alone, I've planted maybe 40 different trees as I start to create wind and sound and sight barriers between myself and the neighbors in the road. So yes, if you can't go out into nature, find a way to bring nature into you. But the connection aspect of spending time in nature requires some sensory work, which can be a challenge, requires some time, which can be a challenge, requires access. So there are many possible ways to find green spaces, and getting a nature prescription from a physician also comes with the ability to get some compensation. I live in Ontario, Canada. Other provinces have some pretty strong programs helping physicians recuperate costs. And what it does for the average person holding a nature prescription, if there is a parking fee, if there is an administrative fee for accessing a green space conservation area, a local park, provincial park, a national park, just like having a prescription, you can submit those receipts to have them covered by your insurance provider. So talk to your physician about it. Consider time choices. And you're right, just like all those other things we know we could and should be doing for a physical, mental, and emotional benefit, simple as flossing, drinking more water, getting more sleep, going outside, 20 minutes a day is recommended. Not every day, right? But start with a couple times a week. There are physical, mental, and emotional benefits. And if you do have all your senses and you do have some time and you have access, don't take it for granted. There's so many that want it and need it. You just can't. So if you can, you got to start trying, got to start doing it. You won't see the difference overnight. I even recommend those people that I asked to comment and complete a survey. I recommend they don't speak to the experience of a guided forest therapy walk until a full 24 hours after the experience, because it's still in them, it's still with them, and they won't be able to fully articulate and have a true answer to their experience until they've come out of it, which could take until the next day. So the benefits of spending time in nature last. 20 minutes a day, get you through the next couple of days. If you can do a couple hours throughout the week, you're good for the month. And if you can find a couple of days through the year, 3 days, you're pretty good. All right, that's part of a nature prescription. So yes, there are some barriers, but once you're in the forest, it doesn't have to be a forest. That's why it's called nature connection, right? It could be a beach, it could be a grassland, it could be a tundra, taiga, right? Just spend time outside with other living things. But the more biodiversity you have access to, the more access to sensory stimulation and connection. So start by going outside, right? Find some green things, smell, listen, feel, notice, breathe. Thanks for watching. Please go outside. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.